Part of the worry is that you're bothering them. And who wants to bother people, right? And the reason why you feel like you're bothering them is because you actually are. And it's because they don't understand, they aren't aware of why you're a relevant person to talk to right now. All they wanted was their home value. And now you want to have this big conversation and come over to their house and you hear them, you feel them trying to get off the phone. And if you're like me, who likes to make people happy, which is why I wrote a book called Too Nice for Sales, I really struggled with that moment that you get them on the phone and you know that they just don't want to talk to you. Until I realized that I was being very selfish. See, I was more focused on my emotional need to feel accepted and approved of than I was the fact that this homeowner is embarking on one of the largest financial transactions of their life. They're doing it alone because they don't understand my value right now. And I'm over here worried if they like me. So when I feel them try to get off the phone, I say something really lame like, I don't want to bother you. Do you mind if I send you some emails? Maybe keep in touch and I'll check on you every once in a while? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, great. Have a good day. You get off the phone, you lie to yourself and say, you know what? I don't want to be pushy. So they seem like a really nice person. I'll put them in my nurture file, right? We mark them nurture, we add our note, and then we move on to the next one. The problem is we never make any money doing it. Good to see everybody. Excited to meet some of you for the first time. I see a lot of new faces. Not all new faces, but a lot. And I wrote a book called Too Nice for Sales. For those of you that this is your first call, that became an Amazon bestseller I think we're at 25,000 copies sold. So not New York Times, but still a lot of copies. And never did any advertising or anything like that. It just was one of those things that took off. The team at Meskula asked me to meet with its users every week for a little bit to take the principles of being too nice for sales and applying it to seller lead generation. And so my job is to help empower and educate you guys on how to talk to homeowners that normally aren't necessarily ready to sell. They aren't ready to sell. And how do you talk to them so that you actually meet with them and help them sell? And I run a team. I've got 80 agents in Virginia Beach. And so I am in the trenches with you guys. I've been doing real estate. I started when I was 18. I'm 43 now. So 25 years. Been a long journey. So this is a collaborative session. So you're going to see some people raise their hand and say, Barry, I spoke with a seller lead last week and I didn't get the appointment. What would you have said if you had this situation? Or I didn't win the listing. What would you have done differently? So that's direct coaching. And then there's my playbook, right? What we're doing to win seller leads. So I always like to start and just see, does anybody have any blockers? Does anybody have any challenges that they're facing that they would like to make sure that I address before we end this call today? If not, I did have something that I wanted to share that is working really well for my team. But yeah, just wanted to check and see if anybody has got a situation that's come up. Maybe you called a lead and they hung up on you, or anything like that. Okay, good. That's fantastic. So one of the things that I want to try to beat home for all of you is that for most of these people, they misunderstand your role. They think that when it's time to have a sign put in the yard, that's when you're a relevant person to speak with. And I've said this, there's a couple people that have been on these calls before. And so I've said this to them, but I don't want to rush through this, because for a lot of you, if you're being honest, when you call a lead, part of the angst, part of the worry is that you're bothering them. And who wants to bother people, right? And the reason why you feel like you're bothering them is because you actually are. And it's because they don't understand, they aren't aware of why you're a relevant person to talk to right now. All they wanted was their home value. And now you want to have this big conversation and come over to their house and you hear them, you feel them trying to get off the phone. And if you're like me, who likes to make people happy, which is why I wrote a book called Too Nice for Sales, I really struggled with that moment that you get them on the phone and you know that they just don't want to talk to you. Until I realized that I was being very selfish. See, I was more focused on my emotional need to feel accepted and approved of than I was the fact that this homeowner is embarking on one of the largest financial transactions of their life. They're doing it alone because they don't understand my value right now. And I'm over here worried if they like me. So when I feel them try to get off the phone, I say something really lame like, well, I don't want to bother bother you. Do you mind if I send you some emails? Maybe keep in touch and I'll check on you every once in a while. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, great. Have a good day. You get off the phone. You lie to yourself and say, you know what? I don't want to be pushy. So they seem like a really nice person. I'll put them in my nurture file, right? We mark them nurture. We add our note and then we move on to the next one. The problem is we never make any money doing that. And so I really want you all, I want to encourage you with a couple of things. I need you to be more concerned with adding value than you are concerned about bothering people. So before I go to the second point, let me give you an example of this first point. If you feel them trying to get off the phone with you and you rush off the phone because you can tell you're bothering them and you haven't added any value, you've allowed the fear and the worry of not making them happy to drive, to be your motivator in that moment, because you're actually being selfish. That's what's best for you. You are keeping your ego in check. You're trying to not be pushy. And I would argue that a higher form of care in that moment is to say, all right, they don't want to talk to me.
Better up on some kind of search, like when she said a better neighbor.
They don't like me. But they're ignorant to my value. So instead of rushing off the phone, why don't I start to ask them a few questions that bring an awareness to the fact that they have no idea what they're doing? I'll give you an example. I'm waiting a year. I'm not ready to talk to a realtor. Most of you would get off the phone immediately, right? Totally understand that you're waiting a year. It sounds like you're planning ahead. I just want to pause for a moment and tell you, I think that's fantastic. So I always want you guys to compliment their objection. Make them feel heard. You're planning ahead. That's great. And then I just want you to use how or what questions. This is the best, most amazing objection handler in the world. Nothing beats. And it's because I'm not teaching you guys to overcome objections. I'm teaching you to understand objections. And what's fascinating about how or what is that they rarely have a reason. They are completely, generally speaking, they are completely ignorant to what's motivating them. They just know it's a big process and they're not even ready to touch it with you right now. And again, they fundamentally misunderstand your role. They think you're DoorDash. They think when it's time to put it in order to have a sign, they call you, hey, I'm ready to sell. Can you come over, put a sign? Can you come help me move my couches, right? They don't understand that some of the greatest value you can provide is in planning and the trajectory of the process. When you ask them, you going back to my example, they said to you, they're waiting a year. I don't need to talk to a realtor. When you say, that's fantastic, you're planning ahead, how did you decide you're waiting a year? They very rarely have good reasons. About half of the time, they might say something like, I'm waiting for school zones, or I'm retiring, or I don't have enough money, or I don't have credit. Regardless, the other half might have a reason, but you're going to hear them, their pitch lack certainty. Well, I don't really have money saved up, right? You can hear them like they don't have conviction. Like if they say to you, I'm retiring April 22nd, 2025, and I am unable to move from my home until 3 months previous or before. Okay, that's the exception to all of this. But very rarely will you hear that kind of certainty. When you hear that kind of certainty, you can do the whole, hey, I'll email you some properties, whatever. Like you don't have to push that person. But the majority of people, seriously, like I would be willing to wager 80% of the humans you actually talk to, you're going to hear some kind of doubt, confusion, ignorance, fear, misinformation. Something is missing right now. So by asking how, you're surfacing a lack of certainty. And so when they do answer and they give you anything to go off of, I'm waiting for my credit, or I'm waiting for my job change. I want you to take that moment where they've actually given you some information, and I want you to press into it as a human, because authenticity is the most compelling character trait a salesperson can have in our culture right now. When a consumer feels like they're dealing with someone that's authentic to them, the likelihood of them continuing the conversation elevates significantly. So when they offer a piece of their life, anything at all, I need you to pause your realtor brain and become a human and relate to them. I'm waiting a year because I'm hoping to get a promotion, and that's what I would need to make the money. Oh, that's amazing, because you asked them how. What industry do you work in, right? Let's say it's manufacturing of cars. And in this conversation, your cousin on your mom's side is in manufacturing for Ford vehicles. Okay, this is a great moment for you to share. Yeah, actually, my cousin works for Ford. He says lots of great things about it. What car industry do you work in? I'm relating, right? And the goal here is, in their mind, you go go from a potential spammer to a realtor to a human, all by not rushing off the phone because you're scared of bothering them. Do you see how dramatically different the conversation goes when you're motivated by trying to connect and help people right where they are versus being motivated by being afraid? Now, what's fascinating about this subject, after a year and a half or 2 years of my book being out, I'm watching a theme take place that's very consistent, and I really want to empower you guys with this. Callous or hardened salespeople have taught themselves to not care. So they can get the prospect on the phone. They can use their scripts to almost trick a person in a matter of sorts to get in the door. And if the person says no, they're like, I don't care about this person. Go to the next. Okay. I'm not faulting them, but that's not me. I'm not that way. And what I found is most real estate agents, the reason why they gravitate towards their sphere of influence and they don't buy leads is because by the time your sphere gets to you, they're like putting an order in like DoorDash. Hey, John. Hey, Barry, can you help me sell my house? Yeah. When do you want me to come over? Right. I'm like a waiter or a waitress. I'm just making them happy. And that's why I love working with my sphere, because I don't have to be anything other than an order taker. But the second you get on a lead on the phone, what you'll find is they're wanting to work with you or work with somebody because they have a lot of ignorance. They're confused. All right. So we got a question. So let's pull that up. It says, how likely is it they'll remember you? Well, they won't at all. They won't remember you ever. You got to meet them. The data is actually really clear. It came out last year from a recent report. 70% of buyers and sellers worked with the first agent that they met with in person. So as you start to ask these questions, how did you decide you're waiting a year? Right? And they tell you what they're thinking. One of the things that I really have encouraged my agents to do is to try to get them to dream a little bit. Where are you thinking about moving? If you sell your home, if they're an investor or it's a second home, is there anything in particular you want to do with the equity when you sell it? Are you going to buy another property? Get them to talk about the future. What they really don't like, to be honest with you, is when we obsess about selling without talking about where they're going next. It's out of touch at best, disingenuous at worst. So as you're motivated to help them, you ask them the how and what questions that I've already told you. Now I've given you a second question as you're motivated to help them, and that is help them to dream. Ask them where they're going to go when they sell their home. You guys notice I haven't talked about the CMA at all yet? But that's why they came to you. That's what they asked for, right? So if, by the way, let me pause. If right out of the gate, they're like, yeah, I just wanted a CMA. And a lot of people will say that. Just tell them, I'm going to send it to you. No problem. Move on. Don't fight with them about having to get in the home. Not yet. Just say, oh, yeah, no problem. I'm going to send it to you. Hey, so, are you thinking about moving anytime soon? Just move on. Move on, right? That's if they have the CMA. Like you tell them, okay, no problem. Yeah, I'll send it to you. Won't be perfect because I haven't seen the inside of your home, but I can give you a range. No problem. So you thinking about moving soon? No, I'm waiting a year. How did you decide you're waiting a year? See what's happening? Oh, I'm waiting for my wife is having another baby. And so we think we need another extra bedroom. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. How many kids do you have? They say, I've got kids. They're so hard, aren't they? Ha, ha, ha. Right? Like we're relating. Now they know I'm a dad. Now they know I'm not just a realtor, right? And then when you ask them where they're going, so you're now pivoting the conversation. Where are you thinking about moving to? Say the east side of town. Oh, I love the east side of town. What has you wanting to move out there? School zones. Oh, that's a great reason. Is there anything you'd like to change? This is a good question. Write this down. Is there anything you'd like to change about where you live right now when you buy this next property? Treasure trove of responses. That is by far and away my favorite question to ask. What are you hoping to change about where you live? Something about like that. Now think about how different that is than what kind of home do you want to buy. If I ask them what kind of home they want to buy, the likelihood of them having certainty on their needs is not great. But if you ask somebody to complain about where they live right now, I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to complain a lot. And they're going to give you all kinds of information. Like, well, I don't have a backyard. I want one. What do you like to do in your backyard? You like to barbecue with your friends? Man, I'm a horrible cook, but I do love some good barbecue. Where'd you get your recipe from? See what's happening? Relating, human level, right? So let me pause for a second because I've been pontificating for about 15 minutes. What I hope you guys heard is that you can come from a really good place, a place of service, a place of compassion, right? You can have really good reasons to not rush off the phone, but I need you to focus on them. So for some of you, this is very different. And what I've found, the only way that this is going to work is if you write down some of the questions, like how or what when they respond. Are you planning on staying in the area? Are you relocating? What are you hoping to change about where you live? And put them next to the computer screen when you call. And that's because when we're nervous, we use our instincts, fight or flight. right? And so you'll have all this. You're like, oh, I'm gonna do what Barry said, and you get on the phone. You're like, hi, yes, I want to talk to you about your CMA. I'm not interested. Okay, have a good day. And you're like, man, like, and you're so frustrated with yourself because you didn't do anything that we said. Bonnie, you're agreeing with me. This happens to you sometimes. Tell me about it. You get on the phone.
Yeah,
and
for sure. I'm just a week into the program, and I've had that exact call that you just described a couple times. But then I did get, actually just this morning, I had one like great call, and we just like related on the phone, and she was talking that they're moving because she's from a military family. I'm like, hey, my husband served, and we weren't even talking about real estate. We were talking, she has 3 dogs, and I have 3 dogs. So I was like, holy smokes, it was so easy. And so I got a taste of what this could be like, but I've had a lot of bad calls where I'm like, you're almost either hanging up or that kind of thing. But this is awesome.
Yeah. And the majority of the calls we don't relate easily with everybody. Like, we just don't, right? Like, I think the job of a good salesman is to try to learn how to relate to as many different kinds of people as you can, right? Almost a chameleon of sorts. But the truth of the matter is, most of the people that answer the phone do not want to talk to you. And as a result, you don't make a lot of money. Now, let me ask you, Bonnie, the person that you spoke to and you related, it sounds like it was going really well. I'm going to make a guess and say that you were just really great, that they are really grateful that they were nice to you. Did real estate come up much? Did you talk about next steps at all?
We did actually, but it wasn't like the majority of the conversation, and it was neat to see how her energy changed, because in the beginning, it was a little more like, like, what did my neighbor's house sell for kind of thing. But then by the end, it was like, I got their whole plans. So.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. So, and what is their plan, just generally?
Oh, they're moving to the island, to Vancouver Island, and they would like to be there by summer. So.
Okay. Did you set up an appointment with them?
We did. Now, the only thing that cut me off a little bit is I pushed to be like, hey, I could be there, to come out this weekend. She says, my husband's already working on the island, and I know he'll want to be there. He knows I'm talking to you today. So I thought that was good. So she said she wanted to touch base with him, and we'll set up a time when he's back in town.
Okay.
So perfect. I'm going to follow up. I was a little disappointed that I didn't get the appointment, but I feel like there's a more likelihood that it could happen. It's like one step closer.
You're in the game, but you haven't won the game yet. So I think that's great. And I think what you do now is let like a few days go by.
Yeah.
And then I want you to think of something valuable that you can give her. Give you some examples. If there's a home that's been listed recently in the general region, I want you to text her and say, or call her and say, hey, there's a listing that I found that's similar in area or price that I wanted to send to you. Do you want me to text it to you, some pictures, or did you want me to email you a link to the listing? What works best for you? Or if there's no listings, you could do, hey, I've got a guide on how to sell your home.
Yeah.
It's a PDF. Would you like me to email it or text it? If it's a text message you're sending and they text back and they say, please text it to me. Perfect. Hey, do you have 5 minutes to jump on a call? Right. So if it's text, jump on the call. And when you get them back on the phone, what I want you to do is I want you to say to them to mention that what I normally recommend when I have someone like the husband's out of town is we just do a 3-way call. I'm sure he has some questions for me. And this way he can ask those questions early on. You want to talk to the decision makers, right? The other thing that is working really well for my team still, we've been doing this for a year now and it works. It's effortless. If somebody says they're 6 to 12 months away from selling, we schedule, we're so glad. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're not ready. That's fantastic. This is the perfect timing. I need to walk your property, look at it like a buyer. You probably think you need to fix like 10 things. And my job is to look at your home like a buyer and kind of bring that down, because not everything you're fixing is going to produce an ROI. And so I want to reduce the expenses so that you don't have to do that. Now, I like to do this appointment Wednesday afternoons or Saturday mornings, but I can be flexible. Is there a better day for you? This still, guys, I'm telling you, there's a couple of you that have been on this call before. Is anybody doing this? Is it working for you? Have you had a chance to try it? I know I'm putting some of you on the spot. VJ, I see you're nodding your head. It's worked for you? Okay. What about you, Sean? I know you've been on a call before. Has it worked for you?
Yeah, it really has. People are usually pretty receptive, and
that's awesome. Good.
Yeah.
Jessica, now you were on, I think, a week or two ago. Have you, I saw you doing a thumbs up. Has it worked for you?
I used it like on a non-Meskula lead. It didn't get me in the door because he wasn't a real seller, but it did open up the conversation.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, I just had an agent last week frustrated with seller leads. They called me. I was like, all right, call that one back that said that they didn't want to meet, offer the walkthrough that I just said. And they text me back, oh my gosh, I can't believe it worked. I'm like, yeah, I know it works. Like this, like, you know, like that's why I'm here, right? Is to try to help you guys. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
You're saying
go
like
ahead.
the call, are you saying that we should like get the people? You were saying like we shouldn't focus on ourselves. So should we get the people to be like angry with us by the time we get off the phone? Like, I know I'm not like saying the right word, but like, you know what I mean? Like push them to the point where it's like, I'm going to hang up on you because I'm not interested. You know what I mean?
Yep. Do you have any children or nieces or nephews that I can relate to for a moment? Do you have any like little people that are either in your personal family or? Okay. So I'm not saying that seller leads are like children. However, there is like a similarity here. When I try to I have 3 kids, and when I try to get one of them to clean something up, it's really hard.
I don't have that information in one
When I turn there we go. When let's say there's popcorn all over the floor, I'm like, clean that up. They're like, whatever, you know, they walk out of the room. If I say, all right, you guys want to play a game? Yeah, let's play a game. And I say, all right, first one to fill up this plastic bag with popcorn gets a piece of candy. Well, they like suddenly, because you tapped into what motivates them, you change their behavior, right? And with seller leads, they do not want to talk to you about selling their home. They do not, generally speaking, they do not think they're ready to sell. And because they misunderstand your role in the process, remember, they think you're a sign person. You're irrelevant when it's time to put the sign in the yard. So because of this fundamental misunderstanding, they're pushing who they think you are away. And in the same way with your kids, you kind of have to position things in a way that helps them get out of their own way. Because if I say, do this or you're in trouble, you're going to timeout, right? They're going to end up in timeout. But because I frame things in a way that allowed them to enjoy and have success, I help them realize what they really needed. These sellers need you and they don't know it. That's the problem.
Right, like this morning I had a call and he was like, he had a second home. I was trying to call and sell his second home. But he was like, no, I'm not. He was like so hard to talk to that I was like, okay. But then I knew he had another home to sell like in the area. So I wasn't able to like push and like open up the conversation and be like, wait, you know what I mean?
So let's role play it. All right. So I call you. Hey, Jessica, this is Barry with Better Homes and Gardens. Was it a home value lead?
No, it was just a circle prospect lead.
Okay. Hey, Jessica, saw you had a home on 123 Smith Street. I'm calling because I have buyers looking in your neighborhood. Do you have any neighbors that are possibly interested in selling?
No. Well, I was asking if he was going to sell his house. I didn't start like
Okay. All right. Well, that was your first mistake. Because by asking them, are you looking to sell? You're hoping for an easy one. That's really what's going on. And the more people you call, you'll probably find an easy one. But if they're not even remotely interested in selling, they're going to push you away right away. But okay, let me try your script. I wouldn't use it, but let's try it. Hey, Jessica, this is Barry, Better Homes and Gardens. I was just checking to see if you were possibly considering selling your home.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Well, I saw you is it a second home that you've got? Because it looks like it's only being used occasionally. So I thought maybe you might want to cash out the equity.
I'm not looking to sell. I'm not looking to sell.
Okay. Let me think about this because it's hard because I wouldn't use this opener.
But then I could change my opener. You could just say wrong opener. And I'll change.
Yeah, because you're basically all or nothing with your opener. Like it's literally setting you up to where if they're not ready to go right now, it crashes and burns. By indirectly saying, do you have anybody in your neighborhood considering selling? If they're even remotely interested in selling, they're going to say it because this is what my agents do with circle prospecting. Hey, I've got buyers looking in your neighborhood. Are you aware of any neighbors that are open to the idea, if the price was right, for them to sell their home? The other thing I would say is when the person is pushing you away, pivot quickly to try to talk about what they would do with the equity, to where they would want to move next. Second home sellers are very difficult because they typically have low urgency. I've never met anybody that had to buy or sell a vacation home urgently. They're out there if they're in a dire financial situation, but outside of like some extreme circumstances, it's their second home. Like they've got a home. And so I have found that the indirect script tends to work really well with those sellers. But the goal, let me be really clear here. The goal is not to make people angry. It's in the same way we ignore the behavior of our toddlers to help them get out of their own way. That's what I need you to do with these seller leads. Mentally, you need to just pat them on their head. Like, okay, they don't think they want to talk to me. They have no idea how amazing I am, right? And they have no idea how valuable I'm going to be for them. And so what I've got to do is keep asking some questions to get them to open up to the fact that they have no idea what they're doing. That's really where I'm going in this conversation. So in fact, it could not be any further from trying to make them angry. It's actually trying to help them. And in the same way, in any profession, people start a lot of times really pushing the person away. But when the professional is consistent and asks really engaging questions, you get the person to open up. I hope that gave some insight there.
Yeah.
Well, we're a little bit over. Does anybody else have any questions about anything that I said? If you need a little bit of clarity, I'm obsessed with you getting off this call and having a couple of things to execute on in your business. That's really, like, if you have one thing, I consider it a success. So as long as you got one thing, I'm thrilled. Does anybody have any questions before I let you go? No? You good, Bonnie? You got some marching orders? All right, good. All right. Well, go ahead, Jessica.
Okay, just like I was talking to Emmanuel about this, but I have like a little bit of extra time and I want to make some calls on my own, like proactively. What spoke would you go? I'm in Florida, so there's like a lot of absentee owners. Like, where should I put my effort into?
So this is not on Meskula, right? This is just you're just trying to make something happen. Do you have a website where buyers search for homes, like an IDX website? All right. Let me think, because the only reason I say that is buyer leads, a significant percentage of them own a home. And so that's a real easy seller conversation. Absentee owners, they work, but I wouldn't probably do that. I would probably say expireds and for sale by owners.
Yeah.
I would probably say that. And look, it's going to be way more difficult than the Meskula leads. It's just going to be, because they're going to get called like 50 times. And so you want to talk about angry, like some of these people are going to answer the phone and they're just really frustrated. But if you learn the skill of talking to expired, you learn the skill of talking to FSBOs, that's been an established practice for 15, 20 years. So there's definitely a pathway there. And the cool thing about that is they actually want to sell. But man, it's a lot more difficult than talking to somebody that just says, hey, I want my home value. The reason why the Meskula process works so well is it's someone that owns their home and is interested enough to register to talk about how much equity they have or talk about their home value. And so it allows you to be relevant and quickly pivot the conversation so that you can start talking about selling. But if outside of that, I would probably say expireds and FSBOs. Yep. All right. Okay. All right, guys. Have a great Friday. See you next week. Yep. All right. Thanks. Bye.